What's going on, everybody? It's your host, Moose. We're back. We know it's been a little bit, but finally here for episode 2 of the Viper's Nest. We got a great show for you going on tonight. Gonna talk some quick XFL updates and around the league. Gonna have a little bit of an in-depth look at the Vipers roster. Gonna break down the defense since we broke down the offense in episode 1. And take a look at the Eastern Conference. Some key names making the 52-man rosters for the XFL. All that coming up with the next episode of the Viper's Nest. As we always do, let's hit that intro. Alright, everybody, we are back. Episode 2 of the Viper's Nest, the official podcast of your Tampa Bay Vipers in the XFL. Hope you're having a great night. Again, it's your host, Moose. But as always, before we get started, let's bring him in. It's the co-host. It's MRod. MRod, how's it going tonight?
Hey, it's going pretty good. Please excuse me not wearing a Vipers shirt. I'm wearing a 49ers jersey here. We got Super Bowl this Sunday, so please excuse that. But other than that, everything's going good. Looking forward one more week, and we get Vipers kickoff next week over in New York against the Guardians and Matt McGloin. So other than that, everything's going pretty good. How about yourself, Moose?
Doing well. It's been definitely a busy week in our household, getting ready for some home projects. Work's been a lot of fun, as I'm sure you've been having fun at work as well. But happy to be back behind the mic. Got a great weekend coming up of content. We've got episode 2 of the Viper's Nest, of course. I think episode 18, the Super Bowl edition of $10 Sports, and episode 11 of the Thunderdome Puckcast. Busy week for the Lightning. Big win over the Kings last night, I believe, and then, of course, going over All-Star Weekend. But for right now, our focus is on the Vipers. About 9 days away or 10 days away from kickoff for the Vipers. I think they've got the Sunday afternoon game, like you said, against the Guardians.
And what options do fans have to listen to this podcast?
Right? Finally added the iHeartRadio logo there. If you're watching on YouTube, of course, you can always watch our pre-recorded or live shows. We go live every once in a while on our YouTube channel. Just make sure to search for the Sports Heap. That's our home YouTube channel. You can find all our shows on there. Of course, you can listen to our podcasts, your usual podcasting platforms, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio. Finally got the logo on there. Spotify and Google Podcast. You can find us pretty easy to search for us. You can even ask Google, put on the Viper's Nest, and it'll find it for you. It's amazing. Technology is amazing. We're in 2020. I'm loving it. You are 3 words away from listening to us on the Sports Heap at any time.
Sounds good. So let's go ahead and get the show kicking off. What's our first topic here, Moose? News and updates?
We're going to do some XFL news and updates. Of course, the big news dropping, I believe, Tuesday this week. Everyone's 52-man rosters. I guess they had to be different from the NFL, and instead of 53, opting for the 52-man roster, dropping for all 8 XFL teams. I think one of the first things we want to discuss, of course, though, is with those 52-man rosters dropping, and I believe they're going to be releasing depth charts in the next week, probably after the Super Bowl, in preparation for game number 1 or week 1. The odds for the championships have come out, and the Vipers are second in odds. But I think what's really interesting is that their over-under for wins has been rated as, I guess, a 7 out of the 10-week season. But they're still only second because they have the Dallas Renegades with the best odds to win the championship, but their over under wins, I think I saw, were 5, which I thought was interesting. So I don't know if they have the Renegades pulling upset in the Eastern Final before heading into the championship game. Right now, I believe I saw the Vipers at plus 400 with the Renegades at plus 300. So I thought that was interesting as betting
And
odds are already ready to go for the XFL season.
what reason do they have the Renegades win it all? Does that have to do with Bob Stoops? Is
I
the
think
coaching?
I
Is
think it's
it
Bob
Landry
Stoops.
Jones?
Yeah, I think it's that connection, the Oklahoma connection there with Bob Stoops and Landry Jones. I'd have to say that gives a pretty sizable advantage. When we look at the Western depth chart, which we'll look at next week to go over their rosters, I'd imagine they have probably a few key players in their offensive positions. But other than that, that's the only thing I can think off the top of my head. I don't know if I wouldn't say they outdrafted us. I mean, any notable names just off the top of my head for other than Landry Jones?
I mean, Cameron Artis-Payne, he was a NFL running back there for a few years with Carolina. Um,
Was he out of Auburn? Did we confirm that?
Cameron Artis-Payne, yeah, he's an Auburn running back.
Right, and then trying to think. I know I remember Jazz Ferguson. I forget what school he went to. That's a name I've heard of. I mean, I guess they have a fairly balanced offensive line, which helps. So,
Yeah.
Greer Martini, Notre Dame linebacker. I think he's
Okay.
projected to start. He had a pretty good career at Notre Dame.
And Freddie Martino, he's an ex-Buccaneer, so he has some NFL experience there as well. I always feel like any players that played in the NFL do have a bit of possibly a bit of a leg up there when it comes to experience and playing in higher, more elite competition.
And you know what I thought was interesting as we were looking at different players and who are the players to watch for each team. That was really interesting. A lot of these players also have CFL experience, so I wonder how valuable or invaluable that's gonna be with the style of game being slightly different in the CFL. I mean, I guess playing is playing, whether it's 3 downs or 4 downs or 110 yards or 100 yards. But
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
think that's an advantage for some of these players bringing in some CFL experience?
Absolutely. I think that's experience because, I mean, you are playing in a professional football league. I mean, it may not be the NFL, but it's probably, the closest you can get to playing in the NFL is the CFL out of college. And, this is actually kind of a league I'd say is probably, overall competition is probably step down from the CFL. Maybe not. Actually, you know what? Might be on par because, like, players like Landry Jones, Cameron Payne, they went from the NFL to the XFL, and I'm not sure if maybe they didn't go to CFL because it's in Canada, or maybe because they pay about the same, or what the reason is. But definitely, I think if you are playing in the CFL, you definitely are playing with some competition and still playing football versus players who are not playing football and just coming straight out of college or players that never got to play in a professional league like the NFL. So I think it's definitely a leg up overall, but only time will tell at this point.
Then, of course, some of the big news coming out of camp, and I thought training camp was really interesting, and I don't know how much we talked about it in episode 1, but they brought everyone together over to Houston, Texas, everyone having camp in Houston, basically, and it became like this giant tournament of scrimmages, which was really interesting. You had some informal scrimmages with everyone on uppers and lowers in terms of pads, but then they basically had some preseason game action. If you're following on Twitter, following not only the Vipers but any XFL team was kind of broadcasting how their teams are doing during the preseason. I guess extended training. It's really hard to find scores. Just wanted to see what the training schedule looked like for the Vipers. I know they closed out with a game against the Guardians, and I think most teams played their week 1 opponent as kind of a dress rehearsal. Everyone had their full jerseys on. They were playing with the rules. There's lots of video out there. Really still intrigued by the kickoff. I think the kickoff's going to be pretty cool to see. And it was actually really cool to see some plays coming out of the kickoff where they had some misdirection. Some of the blockers running, a couple guys down just to make holes. It's really interesting. I'm really interested to hear your perspective on that once you see that live.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like the way they did it. They advertised that, we're not going to charge you for preseason games like the NFL does. So it's kind of like a free scrimmage for the people in that Houston vicinity area. But yeah, no, it was kind of hard to get much information on the game, see how they were going. Other than Twitter, really couldn't really find much. But we'll see how it goes. Don't really don't really have much to elaborate on that, unfortunately, at this point. So.
Yeah, again, I was just following along at work for the most part because it was during the week, and they put a play here and there if someone made a big grab or a big tackle. It was good to see, however, how overtime works, and I mean, it honestly it looked like a World Cup soccer match. The teams were out at like the 40-yard line and basically got one shot from was it the 2-yard line to score.
Oh,
It's like
nice.
either you get one play, you score, it counts as one. If you don't score, it counts as a goose egg. So best of five, Mighty Duck style.
So let's move over to the next topic here. What you got?
Well, before we moved up to the next topic, again, wanted to talk about injuries, kind
Ah,
of news and updates for the Vipers. Uh, one of kind of the minor injuries, Terrian Falston being left off the 52-man roster for now. I guess being put on IR. He can return to the team should he be healthy at the during the year. So not the full IR where he's done for the whole year. He can be reactivated. Of course, Terry Folston got to see him play at Notre Dame, and then kind of I think one of our defensive starters or projected starters was Obum Gwacham, and a name it might sound familiar. Born in Nigeria, played some seasons with the Saints and the Jets. Uh, I think he ended up a year or two in the CFL, but he was projected to be our starting defensive end, which the Vipers already were a little thin and weak on defensive pass rush. He's gone for the year, and I think you had some news on a wide receiver for us.
yeah, Antonio Callaway. He was a receiver that they had signed maybe like 2 weeks ago, and I was really thrilled about him because he went to University of Florida and he played really well over there. I know his career kind of ended short there with some off the field issues. And then he went to the Browns. The Browns still ended up taking him decently high because he had a lot of raw talent. He was a very talented receiver, great hands, great speed. And he showed some goodness there and some flashes of brightness and goodness there in Cleveland. But Cleveland ended up dropping him because, again, off the field issues, showing up late to meetings, etc. So Cleveland ended up cutting him. So the Vipers gave him a chance, and he really seemed to be dedicated to making his football comeback. So it's really excited him because he automatically becomes number one receiver without a doubt. But unfortunately, he suffered a leg injury in camp, and they got placed on IR. Not really too sure what the depth of the injury is or how long he's going to be out for, but they put him on IR. Not sure how the XFL IR rules work. Does he have to be on there for a minimum of 8 weeks? How does that work? But yeah, we won't have him for season opener and possibly the season. So
Yeah, I think he's projected to miss the whole season as well. So a big loss for the Vipers there. That'll bump up Shantavius Jones up to the number one slot in wide receiver. But again, I think we're expecting a lot of production, like you talked about in episode one from Nick Truesdale. Should be a
yep,
pretty decent option at the tight end position.
yep.
Speaking of the roster, let's take a look at a projected depth chart from our friends over at Fantasy Alarm. They do some great work in terms of providing information for fantasy sports, not just the XFL, but the NFL, and I've used it for NHL as well when I've played some fantasy hockey. So let's switch over to that on the big screen. You'll see it right in front of you now. We got the projected Tampa Bay Vipers offensive depth chart, which we talked a little bit last episode in episode one. really interesting. And as we were getting ready for the show, we couldn't, and we kind of knew this with the draft coming in, how the way the draft was formulated. Really, really, really heavy on wide receiver, light at offensive line for the Vipers, and it's a trend you as you look at some of the other teams. A few other teams drafted differently, but most teams are light at offensive line as well.
Hmm.
Went heavy at wide receiver. I think we have 8 or 9 on the depth chart, and Quentin Flowers is basically running 3.5, 4 quarterbacks as well. When you're looking at Aaron Murray as the projected starter for the Vipers, give me some of your thoughts on why so many wide receivers.
Um, well, I guess you can say we're one less there with
Right.
Antonio Callaway because he's on IR. So it's one less receiver there. But I mean, I'm really not sure why they have so many receivers unless they plan on running a lot of spread offense. Um, Aaron Murray from, if we go back to his Georgia days, he was a heavy pass quarterback, set some school records when it comes to passing yards and and also touchdowns. So I mean, we're going to run a very heavy pass offense where we're going to run about 4 or 5 receivers on each play. Running back, it doesn't we don't look too strong. We got Devion Smith, who's a Michigan running back, Mac Brown, another Florida running back. I'm not too sure about Jack Patrick where he's from, but running back overall doesn't seem like one of our strengths unless we move over Quentin Flowers over as some running back, use some that double forward pass, make some plays with him because he, as we know, is a USF quarterback. But the amount of wide receivers, I'm not too sure unless unless they just don't know, unless they have some lack confidence in a lot of these receivers as well. That's the only thing I can think of. But I mean, our number one target, in my opinion, is going to be Nick Truesdale. And from what I've been reading, don't be surprised if if he's probably is the most targeted player in the XFL. So, pretty excited about that. Offensive line, very thin. Um, Not too sure where they went with that, but hopefully these guys can give Aaron Murray some time there. And then like about a week ago or two, we traded for Chase Litton. So I'm not sure if he's jumping up number 2 on the depth chart. Um, but I don't know, he was a quarterback at Marshall and he played pretty well over there. So he was also on an NFL team. I want to say the Chiefs. He was on, played some preseason with the Chiefs. So he's got a little bit of NFL experience under his belt too. Nothing too in
Yeah,
depth.
it's a tough draw of being a quarterback for the Chiefs. Had definitely some stiff competition there.
And then with defense, any notable names on defense? Yeah.
Yeah, let's scroll down to defense and we'll look at that a little bit more closely. CC Jefferson, Florida Gators product. Uh, who else? It's another name I recognize. I think one of what I wanted to discuss is just being super slim at linebacker.
Yeah, 4 linebackers.
The total of 4 linebackers. Uh, my guess is because we're probably going to be a nickel and dime package most of the time. Is going to be my guess
Yeah,
with the
give it all.
XF. Well, I think the XFL is definitely not going to be a power running league. I think it's going to be offense is going to be stressed. You're going to be going for it on fourth down because punting is you're not incentivized to punt at all, especially with the major touchback happening if you punt it out of bounds and inside the 35 or through the end zone. You're starting at the 35 anyway, so I think there's going to be a lot of going for it on fourth down because statistically, it's in terms of field position, you're really not sacrificing much. So you're probably looking at 3, 4, 5 wide receiver sets a lot. Maybe
Yeah, that makes sense.
that's. I mean, maybe that's why that would be my guess. When you're looking at some of the analysis on the rosters, I think the big area of concern is defense, and specifically defensive line and defensive pass rush for the Vipers. A couple, CeCe Jefferson, of course, and Bobby Richardson, really some of the biggest names in terms of pass rush, but uh, Ricky Walker and Delantra's Mount. I mean, kind of marginal college players. Not if spent some time. I think preseason rosters. I want to say one of them played a little in the CFL.
I like Jalen Collins. I know he was a defensive back at LSU, and I
Right.
want to say he was a draft pick. He was on the Falcons, but I want to say he was drafted decently high, like a second or third rounder.
You're
So,
right. Second, he was a second rounder. Yes, Jane Collins was a second rounder.
he's got, I mean, obviously he's got some experience there in the NFL, and he's got that, obviously he was good in college too. He was drafted in the second round, so that's pretty reassuring there. That's the only name I really recognize there for the
I want
on
to
defensive.
say uh, Hanneman was I think was a UCF Knight. I want to say. Uh, don't quote me on that. I think he was potentially there during I think the time before Frost and the charge on 14-0 season or whatnot.
Mike Hanneman?
Was Micah Hanneman? I knew I was going through the
No,
roster and
he
I
was
one of the
Cougar. He was a Cougar.
from Houston.
No, the other Cougars.
What Cougar?
Brigham Young
Oh,
University.
that's right. He's the BYU guy. I thought the Cougars like Houston. Yeah, the BYU. So in terms of defense, I don't know what to expect. I think the Vipers are going to be a very offensive team, and they're hopefully will be outscoring players or teams. But defense, I think, is going to be really interesting. I wonder the value of defense in this league, that given the way that offense is being stressed. So I don't know. We'll have to see. You'll have a bird's eye view from your founders' seats. Week 3, the first game for the Vipers.
And first game actually first I was kind of like calling ahead because I know we're going to talk about the week 1 preview, but I'm a little concerned against the Guardians because as a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, going back to the mid 2000s, early 2000s, we got burned by Joe Horn all the time. And now it's the resurrection of Joe Horn Jr. Is he gonna give us a hard time like his father did?
Wow, we got a Joe Horn Jr. Is he gonna? Hopefully, he can pull out a new Motorola Razor from the goalpost pads. That'd be a great touchdown celebration.
And this time they're touchscreen, flip touchscreen one. That'd
Yeah.
be pretty cool.
And in
If
fact,
that
he doesn't
fully
have to.
works.
He doesn't have to dial. He can just tell Siri to call whoever he wants to call, and he's in good shape. Doesn't even have to waste time dialing. So kind of, I think defense is going to be a sore spot for the Vipers.
Oh
We'll have to
man,
see.
hold on 1 second here. Did I just read that name right? Hold on.
I know
Sorry to go off
we were
track.
going through some of the rosters, and you're starting to get old when you start seeing kids of players you used to watch. And I've been experiencing that too in the NHL with Matthew Tkachuk's kids, Brady and Colin. I think playing for the Senators and the Flames. Lots of children coming up
Oh
uh,
wow.
in both the NHL and NFL. And baseball's a great example. Fernando Tatis Jr.
Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
Yeah, Vlad Jr. I mean, a lot of kids coming up from the players we used to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. But a notable name that I just noticed, Sean Oakman. You remember him?
I don't remember Sean Oakman.
He was on Baylor. They made that meme about him. He was like huge, like dude's like monster. And everyone they made like crazy memes about him. Look it up if you get a chance. Sean Oakman. There was at least like 500 memes of him, all over the place. It was like huge. Like, I mean, just freaking humongous. He's on the Wildcats. I was pretty shocked. I haven't seen that name in forever. He was supposed to go into the NFL, but some off the field issues prevented him from going on there, which actually ended up being false allegations, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yikes!
Uh, so he's trying to make a comeback
Yeah, but
to the NFL.
once you get those allegations, it's tough to shake them. So first team DC Defenders out of the East. The big name for them, of course, Cardale Jones was a pretty solid career at the Ohio State University. Uh, Again, they're going pretty heavy on wide receiver as well. Maybe not as many as the Vipers, but 7 or 8 for them with Rashad Ross, Neil Rogers, a few notable names there. I think they had a few on defense as well. Oh, Scooby Wright. I remember that name. Anyone else notable? They've kind of had some under the radar special teamers, and that's probably why you see such a high count on wide receivers. I bet you a lot of those will be special teamers. You probably just want some quick guys getting down the field for your punts, and the kickoff I think will be interesting too, especially if everyone lined up within 5 yards. So I don't know if it's going to be bigger guys setting up blocks for that, or if you want your speed guys out there.
I sent you a couple of those Sean Oakman memes.
Oh, great! I'll have to check those out. So, and DC Defenders really, they're forecasted middle of the pack, probably not making the playoffs. I think their over under was at about 4 wins for the to make the championship and to win the championship. So, gonna be tough sledding for them. I know one of the podcasts I listened to, kind of a semi. I don't know if it was a media stunt or anything, or but a PFT commenter from Barstool Sports tried out for their kicking job, and that's all chronicled on YouTube and some of the videos they've been sharing, and actually did not do too bad. Was drilling a couple 45-yard field goals, but ultimately did not make the team. So I feel
Ah,
bad for. That would have been hilarious to see PFT commenter on there. But again, great exposure for the XFL. Uh,
another person that tried out too for kicker was Chad Johnson.
but did he actually go through? I heard that he didn't. He no showed.
Let me see.
Yeah, can we verify that? Because that was some of the talk too. That uh, he was talking like he was going to actually go and try out, and then I've heard that he might have no showed for his tryout because obviously he didn't make any of the rosters. That would have been pretty.
Yeah, Chad Johnson skips XFL
Yeah,
tryout.
of course.
The commish says he's off their radar, and that would have been exciting.
Yeah, this Chad Ochocinco back. That would have been interesting.
Still,
Guardians will preview next week, but again, just on the surface, McGloin really the big name there, giving them a pretty serviceable quarterback. Trying to look at running back, and a few of the receivers. Yeah, Joe Horn Jr. I'm really excited for Joe Horn Jr. Maybe he'll make some noise against the against the Vipers. And then, of course, our other Eastern Conference foes are your St. Louis Battlehawks, who are rated to be near the bottom of the league. Worst team is forecasted to be the Seattle Dragons.
oh,
They're like at plus 1,100 odds to win the championship.
the
Over,
Battlehawks got two good running backs, Christine Michael and
right?
Matt Jones,
Yeah,
two NFL starters at one point.
yeah. But yeah, we'll look at Seattle next week. They're projected to be not great. I forget who's going to be starting quarterback of the Battlehawks. I want to say they started Tamu. They announced Tamu Jordan
Yeah, I
as their
saw that.
starter. So Nick Fitzgerald missing out there.
Tamu Jordan, that's a Ole Miss guy, I
Is he the
believe.
Ole Miss guy? Was he the? Was he the? He had DK Metcalf on his team. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, yeah. Jordan Tamu actually played pretty well at Ole Miss, and he did have DK Metcalf. Um, so I can see him winning the starting job there. I mean, Tyler Henneke, I'm trying to think where he played at. I know that name's familiar. Where did he play at? Tyler Henneke was. Oh, he had an NFL career. He played for the Vikings, Texans, Panthers. That's where I remember him on the Panthers. That's where I remember his name from. He went to Old Dominion University.
Then a big name in the special teams front for the Guardians is Marquette King, uh, rock star punter in the NFL for a few
Yeah.
seasons. So hopefully he'll be bringing the swag with the New York Guardians. We'll preview that a little bit more next week and
Oh, and
more in
he's
depth.
he's on. You said what team is he on?
So the
The Marquette King.
Guardians, the Guardians.
Marquette King. I don't think Marquette King's on the Guardians. I
Did he
think
get?
he's on St. Louis.
Oh, St. Louis. Yeah, my bad. St. Louis, Marquette King. We'll have to edit that. But when we play the Battlehawks, that should be interesting, bringing some expertise. in special teams game to the St. Louis Battlehawks, who have the sweetest helmets, by the way. They have the logo that basically takes up the entire helmet, top to bottom, left to right. I'd put a close second. The Guardians logo actually looks pretty sweet on the helmet.
Renegades aren't bad.
Yeah, I don't know. The color's unique. Color's unique for the Renegades, but we'll see how stuff pans out against the Renegades. That's been it for us on episode 2 of the Viper's Nest. A little bit thin on the news, but we'll be pretty excited to get the preview going for next week on episode 3 for the New York Guardians, as well as previewing the other matchups in the XFL. Again, don't forget you can follow us on Twitter. Mike's at MRod _TSH. You see him right there. And Moose at Moose _TSH on Twitter. You can find us definitely this weekend as Super Bowl 54 goes on. You can find some sweet tweets from us. And of course, don't forget, you can always listen to us on your favorite podcasting platform: Apple, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Google. Hope you have a great night. We'll catch you for episode 3 next week of the Viper's Nest. Go Vipers!
Definitely go Vipers. Have a great night, and enjoy Super Bowl Sunday.